Welcome and thanks for making time, whether you're joining us live or you plan to watch this later when you have some time. But it's my pleasure. I'll be in a moment sharing space with my colleagues and partners in this work toward achieving equitable outcomes for students across Illinois. But I thought it'd be important to understand a little bit about the work of the partnership and what we aim to do, and then share space and time to hear from our colleagues and the ways in which they're actually doing the work at their campuses. So my name is Joe Saucedo, pronouns are he, him, his, and I work as an equity program manager with PCC, as we affectionately refer to our organization. And what you're going to hear from us is really about, ways in which institutional partners like Northern Illinois University and Oakton Community College have developed reforms at their campuses, ways in which they are, putting into practice the work of ensuring that students find their place, find their footing and sense of belonging. Certainly our students who have been racially minoritized at our institutions, in ways to support them and empower them, both in the classroom setting, but also in non-academic settings as well. So excited to share that with you. The Illinois Equity and Attainment Initiative is really the central signature way that we go about doing our work at the partnership from a practical level. And so that's what we're going to speak on today. I'll stop there and have my colleagues introduce themselves and their roles at their institutions. So if we could have Danielle.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle Terry. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I serve as the Equity Coordinator for Black Student Success at Oakton Community College. Excited to be here with you all today.
And I'm Beth Ingram. I serve as the Executive Vice President and Provost at Northern Illinois University, and I'm also a faculty member in the Economics Department here, and I'm excited to be here as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you both. And, I should say right off the bat, to offer a disclaimer, even though our initiative, the Illinois Equity and Attainment Initiative, kicked off just a few years ago in 2018, and PCC launched in 2017, so we just celebrated our 5th anniversary last year. By no means are we saying that NIU and Oakton and a number of our partners have not been doing this work. So I do want to offer that up front, that many of our institutions have been engaging and often leading educational reforms from a racial equity lens and socioeconomic equity lens. But what's unique about this initiative is that we've done the work to coordinate efforts in a very meaningful, strategic, collective way. So you'll hear about that as well. Our mission is really simply to champion policies and practices and systems that ensure more students are graduating, particularly when we look at the state of Illinois, the students who have often been most excluded from opportunities for success. And that includes our low income, under-resourced students who often tend to be first-generation college students, as well as our students of color. And we want to highlight, underscore Black and Latinx students, because historically and currently, those are where we see the largest gaps in achievement and opportunity. Our work at PCC is done at the intersection of 3 core areas. It's public policy, which you'll hear some of you later this week from my colleagues advancing our political and legislative agendas. We do this at the intersection of public policy, our partnerships with colleges and universities, as well as through research and data. So I mentioned before, I'm an equity program manager. We're a very small team at PCC whose major function really is to cultivate and strengthen relationships with our partners. And so through the work of the Illinois Equity and Attainment Initiative, that is a collaborative of, at the moment, we have 25 active partners. These are 2-year and 4-year public and private institutions who have really made an investment of resources and time and strategy to really do what they can to reduce and ultimately and eventually eliminate gaps that exist in terms of degree completion that are excluding students of color as well as under-resourced first-gen students. So one of the main ways that we develop these relationships is to connect with our teams. We have leadership teams, core teams that represent each of our institutional partners. This is done through quarterly meetings, through presentations, through one-on-one conversations, even with our practitioners and scholars from these schools. We share data, we collect data, in real time. We often set aside time to troubleshoot and problem solve. A few of us at the partnership have directly worked with students at the institutional level. So a lot of times I'm able to bring in some of that insight and what I've learned in working directly with students and with faculty and other campus partners to bring that into our conversations and how to support and guide our colleagues toward reaching students more effectively. Now, what does this coaching do in terms of translating to programming? Because really a lot of what we do with ILEA as an initiative is to develop capacity building, professional development opportunities throughout the year to really empower our partners, no matter their functional role at the institutions. We really develop these programs with them in mind and with the hope to not only educate, empower, but to share knowledge that and evidence-based programming that can support them at their own institutions. So this informs our data training. I'll speak in a moment about our partnership with the National Student Clearinghouse. We offer case studies, examples. We've been doing this more regularly in the last year and a half, I would say, to lift up the case studies that exist at our own campus partners, two of which you're going to hear today. And then we provide annual convenings of our partners. We've seen a steady increase in our participation thanks to being able to shift from in-person conferences and institutes to now offering them virtually. We're able to reach a lot more folks who otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity and maybe the ability and time to travel. So that's been definitely rewarding for us. So I mentioned evidence is an important trait of our initiative, and it's important to understand this is the way in which we guide our programming. This is the way we've really, in launching the ILEA initiative, we needed to understand where are those gaps in student populations across our institutional partners, which students are not being served well by the institutions, and where do we have work to do? So by virtue of being active members in our initiative, our collaborative, all of our partners are participating in what is called the post-secondary data partnership. Now, we recognize that institutional data is being collected at all of our colleges and universities, many using their own proprietary and other systems. But what's unique about the partnership for data, the post-secondary data partnership, is that we're able to leverage the tools from the National Student Clearinghouse to collect student level data, cohort level data as well. And so let me back up. With the launch of ILEA, we required all active partners to develop 5-year strategic equity plans. We call them equity plans. And in those plans, they were able to, it served as a roadmap to understand where are they currently, historically been as it relates to graduating students of color or first-gen Pell eligible students, and where do they want to be in the next 5 years. And so we are now in our 2nd year of implementing those equity plans. We had 21 out of 25 schools publish 5-year plans. We have a few more that are about to release those plans in the next year. And so it was important to look at the data and understand, where are those gaps? For some of our schools, the gaps are larger than others. For some of our minority serving institutions, we have the majority of our schools are Hispanic serving. So the gaps may look a little different for their institutions. And so this PDP partnership allows them to have access, and us at the partnership for college completion, to have access to dashboards and understanding. It allows us to look very granularly which students by race we can disaggregate by a number of identifiers, including gender, race, socioeconomic status, and other markers to indicate to us where are we, again, not serving students effectively through graduation. So the next few slides, I just want to highlight some of the programming that we at PCC provide and offer. Again, we've been 100% virtual since March of 2020. We are hoping at the moment, we're exploring ways to bring folks back safely onto campuses across our partnership. But for now, it's been very useful to reach the masses within ILEA. I want to highlight in November, so our annual summit, this is where we convene upwards of 500, more than 500 partners. This includes, just to give you a sense of who's coming, our core teams are usually comprised of the president of the university or college, the executive team members, so vice presidents of academic affairs, for example, our provost or chief academic officer, folks from student development, student affairs, often institutional research, or the data leads at the campuses. We'll have faculty. We definitely stress the importance of faculty champions in guiding this work as well. So back in November, we held our annual summit, one of our largest, and this was our 5th time as an organization to bring folks together. I think that the beautiful thing here is that we've evolved from having a strictly external, presenter base, meaning we've invited speakers from throughout the country who have demonstrated that they've been able to lead higher education reforms and done so effectively. We've gone from having 100% folks from the outside of Illinois to present to now having a pretty good mix of lifting up the voices of our own cohort, which has been part of the plan. So again, we've seen that over the course of the last couple of years. And so our next, so that essentially summit is convening folks at multiple levels of the organization seeking to grow and understand and become quote unquote equity practitioners in their own right. But that can be daunting and overwhelming depending on folks' time and their functional roles at their campuses. So we've heard loud and clear folks asking, how can we come together in smaller ways and in smaller groups? And so our response to that this year was the Equity Circle for Change. This is a community of practice whereby we at PCC have convened via Zoom. We've invited colleagues, different parts of the institutions that they come from, to focus on a key theme and topic. And so this year we thought, again, given the demographics of our ILEA partners, many of them being HSI, Hispanic serving, we thought let's pilot our first Equity Circle to focus on this topic of how do you create equitable outcomes for students, as well as for staff and faculty that work at HSIs. And it's been great. We've had a small group, committed group that has been meeting since November. This next month, we're actually going to reconvene, and you'll see on the screen, Hispanic Serving Institutions in Practice. This is a graphic of a book that just came out last year from one of our former speakers at an event. Dr. Gina Ann Garcia has been raising consciousness around how do you move from being a Hispanic enrolling to having the demographic composition of students at your campuses who are Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, to actually serving them in meaningful, culturally relevant ways. So we're excited to dig into a case study from this book with this group. An offering that we provided last year, this is in partnership with the Aspen Institute, a national thought leader, and they lead tremendous work in higher education reforms, particularly for two-year institutions. We've assembled, we've planned and implemented what we call an Equity Academy. This is a leadership development opportunity for presidents and their executive teams. We did this last year. This year is our second cohort for this program. And it's been really amazing and enlightening to really, convene these teams to tackle issues around racial equity. I'm going to fast forward to the next slide. This is just to give you a sense of what the curriculum has been about in this academy. We've, centered the stories and perspectives of other college and university presidents who have led this work. We've been very real about presenting the challenges and obstacles to success in this work. And so this year, one thing that stood out for us is that there was a gap in understanding how do you link budget to your equity goals, right? Aligning budgets and strategic finance with your equity goals. And so later this month, we're actually going to reconvene both cohorts to listen to some thought partners and leaders who have done this, and to have our own partners really dig deep into what does this look like at your own institutions. What's on the horizon quickly before I turn it over to Dr. Ingram from NIU. We are currently, we're engaged in some high level and micro assessment of what's been working across our ILEA cohort. So we're excited later this year in fall of 2022, we're going to be publishing and making available an annual report to see where were our partners at the beginning of this initiative, where were they in terms of developing their 5-year equity plans, and what does implementation look like? What are those preliminary results looking like for their student outcomes? We're also taking part in an evaluation. It's a 3-year study from colleagues at NORC at the University of Chicago and in partnership with Fordham University. They're taking a look at us as PCC, a nonprofit, doing this work of collaborating and convening institutional partners in racial equity reform. They're by process of qualitative and quantitative assessment, they're going to understand what makes this initiative tick and how might it be replicated even for other states that are looking to roll out and deploy their own reform efforts. We are constantly, so nonprofit, we are 100% funded through outside grants, foundation grants and support. And so we're constantly looking to fundraise and provide grant opportunities that can then help to really jumpstart and sustain the work of our partners like NIU and Oakton. And then last but not least, we also know how important it is and crucial to do this work authentically. We can't do it without the insight, perspective, and solutions put forth by our own students at our institution. So we do have a council, the Student Advisory Council, that has been around at PCC for the last 3 years. And we are currently seeking ways to empower them to amplify their participation in this work. So I'll stop there and transition over to Dr. Ingram.
Thanks, Joe, for that great description of all the work that the PCC and the ILEA have done. As Joe said, many of us have been involved in student success work for many years. I'm just finishing my 3rd year at NIU, but in a prior life, I was a vice provost for undergraduate affairs at the University of Iowa. And so in many ways, it feels like this has been my academic life for at least 20 years. What gives me hope, though, is that I'm seeing so much more research-guided work being completed through the support of organizations like the Partnership for College Completion and ILEA. I've been here for about 9 months when COVID hit, so it's been an interesting 3 years, an interesting transition. I'm really excited that we're getting back to more normal look and feel on our campus, and that's so important for our students and their success. And I think we're learning a lot about the mental health needs and the issues that they've faced over the course of COVID and how to respond to that. I'm sure you are thinking about those issues as well. We've really learned to adjust and pivot. But I think one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that we've learned how to meet like this, and it's opened up possibilities for having conversations with people that were really hard before because of distance and expense. So I appreciate conferences like this where we can come together and make use of that technology. Next slide, please. So prior to COVID, we joined the Illinois Equity and Attainment Network to push forward our mission to serve students from diverse lived experiences and to support their success to graduation and great careers. We're also an R2 institution, and our research mission is central to our identity. Something that distinguishes us as an R2 is the undergraduate students really do participate in our research and artistic endeavors and get to create new knowledge. And to me, that's really exciting for a student here at a place like NIU. We're also proud that we're an engaged university. We take seriously our mission to serve our region, state, and national partners and to make lives better in communities large and small. Next slide, please. We enrolled just around 16,000 students, give or take. About 75% of our students are undergraduate and 25% are graduate and law students. We're a diverse institution. 53% of our students identify as racial or ethnic minorities using the federal nomenclature. 50% are first generation, and 51% are Pell eligible at some point in their college career. So we offer a wide variety of scholarships and grant programs to meet our affordability mission. And we think every day about how we serve our students who we know come from diverse backgrounds, perhaps need extra help in affording a college education and understanding how to pay for college. So next slide, please. So there are lots of different elements to our ILEA plan and how we've worked with our ILEA partnership. Today, I'm just going to talk about one of those. And that was the initiative that started prior to COVID and was completed last fall, which is the elimination of developmental education courses at NIU. Prior to the fall of 2021, we had 4 courses that could be labeled developmental education. These courses did not earn college credit. They did not count toward a major. Basically, students paid money for a course as a catch-up, or what we consider to be catch-up. They did not help students progress. 2 of the courses were in math and covered typical pre-algebra courses. English 102 and literacy skills covered basic reading, writing, and study skills. Many of our students were automatically placed in these courses based on standardized test scores or high school GPAs, so they had no choice about going into the courses. As you know, the original goal of such courses when they were created many years ago, I think that people had the best intentions in mind when these were created, probably at the end of the 1990s, was to make up for what we viewed as, at that time, as deficiencies in the preparation of some of our students. And we had a sort of a deficit mindset that we needed to shore up our students. But as most of you know, the track record on developmental courses is not great. We found that students can succeed in college level courses. That's why we admitted them. Every student we admit, we believe can be successful in a college level course. So that has guided our thinking about developmental education. In addition, in the fall of 2019, even before COVID hit, NIU made the decision to be test free. So starting in the fall of 2021, anybody admitted for that session, we would not even look at test scores. So it wasn't an option, we were just test free. So both because of the research that showed developmental education courses were not serving their purpose, they weren't helping our students progress and graduate, and because most of the placements were based on standardized test scores and we weren't going to be collecting those anymore, we had strong motivation for really rethinking what used to be called developmental education. Next slide, please. As a starting point to developmental education reform, we started by outlining some guiding principles that would help us think about how we would go about reforming and changing our approach. We wanted to use data, both qualitative and quantitative, to guide our decision-making and to use multiple measures to assess placement. So we had a lot of data on course success rates, how students performed in various courses, but we also wanted to use qualitative data. So what are we hearing from the students themselves about what they need to be successful? What are we hearing from the advisors? In addition, we wanted, as I said, to use multiple measures. We didn't want to use a single test score at a single point in time. We weren't even collecting them anymore, so we couldn't do that. But we also wanted to understand that GPAs differ and to really look at the whole student holistically as we made suggestions about what courses they should go into. Our goal was to ensure equitable access to credit-bearing courses that counted toward graduation. And our mantra was that every student is able to succeed in a college course given the right supports. So we talked about that a lot as we worked through the changes in the courses that I'm going to talk about. Next slide, please. Excuse me. The process was led by our Vice Provost for Academic Affairs, Omar Grayeb, and included associate deans, chairs, and faculty from relevant departments. It was really, it started out with a small core team, but that core team had tentacles that went out to lots of different departments to make sure that everybody understood what we were doing, why we were doing it, by distributing the guiding and talking about the guiding principles. Those groups came up with recommendations for the courses I'm going to talk about. And then once we had some recommendations for how to change how we place students into courses, we vetted that widely with the advisors, with students, with other faculty and other departments to make sure that we hadn't missed anything and that it made sense on campus. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about each of the areas specifically because the approach was actually a little bit different in each of them. For math, we adopted ALEX, a commercial product that many of you are probably aware of. It's pretty widely used for math placement by many other institutions in Illinois, in fact. So prior to enrollment, students take an online placement test. If they're not satisfied with their results, they can review materials in Access and do online modules and retake the placement exam. All of that is offered to them free of charge by NIU. And so they can take the placement test up to 5 times, but they can also, if they placed into a course and they're a little bit rusty on trigonometry or quadratic equations, they can actually use their placement test results to review materials ahead of the start of the semester. So that's another way that ALEX supports the success of our students. We used our ILEA grant that we received, our Catalyst grant last fall, to provide supplemental instruction in math courses, knowing that we had a new system for placement. It wasn't going to be perfect. And also that because of COVID, a lot of students had suffered learning loss over the prior year. And so we wanted to make sure that students had access to tutoring, but also supplemental instruction. So student tutors who sat in on the classes with students, modeled note-taking skills, but also helped with specific concepts in the courses. We expect to assess our placement scores and refine our cutoffs based on the data. That will be a continuous process. So we're not going to just say one and done. We're going to keep gathering data and analyzing what we do. And finally, as part of this, we're starting to explore math pathways, which is a system in which instead of, it was described to me once as thinking about a forest, and current math systems usually tell everybody you got to climb that oak tree. Math pathways gives you a choice of an oak tree, an elm tree, or an ash tree, depending on what your major is. And so we're looking at ways in which we can really offer pathways to students that make sense relative to their major, rather than convenience for us or what we think they might need. Next slide, please. For our literacy courses, we eliminated the non-credit literacy course. There was an intro literacy course, and then there was an higher level literacy course that did count toward graduation and counted for credits. So we eliminated the lower level developmental course in favor of that higher level course that we were already offering. But in addition, as we suggested that students take that higher level course, we also created sections of the course focused on areas of study. So we knew that literacy, the research showed us that literacy skills were better adopted when students learn them in the context of their majors. So we created context-specific learning courses, one in the humanities, in the natural sciences, in the social sciences, and in general studies. So if you're a natural sciences major, you would take the natural sciences literacy course and, for example, learn how to read a chemistry textbook, which is actually very different from reading a history textbook. So we wanted to embed the skills in the kinds of courses that students would find helpful right away. All of the courses bear college credit and count toward graduation. These courses are open to all students. We don't place anybody into them automatically. It's a discussion that the student has with their advisor in the summer when they come in to register for courses. We strongly urge students who have a high school GPA less than 3.0 to enroll in the courses, but nobody is forced into the courses. It's a conversation with their advisor. Next slide, please. And again, with English, we had a developmental course that was the gateway to all of the other courses that actually counted toward general education credit and toward majors. We eliminated that course. So now students go directly into the course that will count toward their general education requirement. It doesn't require a placement test or a standardized test score for placement. There are other course options, and students can place into those based on a placement test. If they don't like the placement test, or if their high school GPA doesn't place them into the course they want to be into, they can take an exam to place into a different course. So again, we're relying pretty heavily on the advisors to have conversations with students about what makes sense for them based on their entire high school record and the major that they're intending to pursue. Next slide, please. Now, just reforming the courses really doesn't get you where you need to be. Just ensuring that students are in credit-bearing courses and that advisors are working to place them in the correct courses. We also wanted to work with the faculty to ensure that they're using pedagogical approaches that respond to diverse learners and that they have the best research-based pedagogical practices in their classrooms. So we're working with faculty who teach gateway courses to ensure that they have access to research about pedagogical approaches and the ability to implement those. And we have a partnership with ACU, the Association of College and University Educators for Faculty Development. Over the last year and a half, this partnership started in the fall of 2020. We've had about 200 faculty participate in ACU courses and have earned a credential from ACU in inclusive and equitable teaching. We're also in the middle of our accreditation cycle with the Higher Learning Commission. We're in about year 7, which means we are in the midst of our quality improvement project for those of you who are accredited by the HLC. In the midst of accreditation, you do a large project that is supposed to span the campus and respond to a need that you've identified. We actually wrote that quality initiative focused on some of the ideas in our ILEA plan to focus on high DFW courses to reduce success gaps and to ensure better success rates overall for students in those courses. We've expanded use of technology to connect students to academic support services. So we just implemented something called Navigate Student. It's often called Smart Guidance. That is yet another channel for communicating with students. It's an app that they have on their phone and to connect them to resources. And then, of course, as I said at the beginning, we're always focused on the non-academic needs of our students to find ways to help them feel like they belong, to make a connection on campus. And we're especially concerned about mental and emotional health right now, just because, you know, across the nation, we know that the last 2 years have been really traumatic and difficult, and a student can't perform well in the classroom if they're dealing with struggles and trauma outside of the classroom. Next slide, please. So I'm really proud of what we've accomplished at NIU, and I'm especially proud that we did it in the midst of a global pandemic. But you know, we can't do this without the support of our partners and with collaborations across institutions to find out what works, what doesn't work, how do you make things better, how do you tweak what you're doing to have it work just a little bit better. So I do appreciate the partnerships that we've had. And let me just end by saying, you know, I'm proud of NIU, but the best moment of the year for me is this one, watching our students walk across the stage and receive a diploma. And that's what this is really all about. So thank you.
Most definitely. Yeah, thank you. And we're only, what, a few months away, I think, from another milestone. Yeah,
exactly.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna transition us then to Danielle. And please note for folks in the audience, if you do have questions, again, we invite you to submit those questions or comments in the chat. Or yes, I think we only have the chat function. So please let us know and pause if you'd like us to address any of those.
Ready. Good morning, folks. Again, for folks who might have missed, my name is Danielle Terry. My pronouns are she, hers, and her, she, her, and hers, and I serve as the Equity Coordinator for Black Student Success at Oakton Community College. And today I want to share with you a little bit about how Oakton, specifically with the Black Student Success Program, is committed to bringing equity to our campus. Next slide, please. So before I'm pretty new to Oakton. I started this position in January of 2021, but even before I got here, Oakton was committed to being equity minded. And so with that, there was the disaggregation of the data, which shows that Black students were not doing as well as other students at Oakton. Now we know being equity minded, that's not on the student, that's on the institution. So Oakton wanted to address those needs. and provide the Oakton experience for all students that attend here. And so with doing that, thus came the creation of the Black Student Success Program. And there's other academic programs as well. Starting this fall, we'll have what's called the Williams Academy that will be specifically geared for African-American men. Next slide, please. So a little bit, I'll just share a little overview. As I mentioned, I started at Oakton in January of 2021, and thus that's when the position started. And the Black Student Success Program, Black is actually an acronym. So it stands for Building Lasting African Culture and Knowledge. And I work specifically to help students enroll, I help students stay at Oakton, and I help them complete their education and think about what they want to do afterwards, whether it's going to work, whether it's attending a four-year institution or starting their career. And so what I do specifically with students in the program is I work to deconstruct historical and contemporary issues of systemic racism, anti-Black racism, and educational inequities. And so I know in this third point, I say students engage in critical learning opportunities, but I also want to add that in my position, it's critical that I get the students to participate in critical learning opportunities, but not just students. That's going to also include faculty, staff, administrators. Because this program is so new, there's lots of things to learn about the Black student population here at Oakton. And so that's where I come in at, is exploring when I'm talking to students, finding out what their needs are, the different identities that Black students hold. It's very important for me to share that information out with the campus so that we can all be able to support Black students together. I'm the only person in this role, but I cannot do this work by myself. It takes an entire campus to be able to support the student population effectively. And some of the things that comes along with is helping students to get better study habits, having network opportunities for students, being able to attend conferences, and then even having things like student employment and being able to take advantage of other resources that the campus offers. And we can go to the next slide. So throughout this presentation, I want to share with y'all some student voices. And just so you can hear, these are some of the students that I work with. This was last fall at our Friendsgiving event. And so this is Stephanie, and she says, I was shy and nervous, but intrigued at the idea of having a program specifically geared towards Black students. I was looking to have a safety net, financial resources, and new friends. I found that and then some. And just another little note on this, the program started in the pandemic. And so my primary goal of reaching out to students was through phone or through email. And we know at that time students were, trying to survive, take care of themselves. So it was for me, it was a challenge. However, during the fall, I really worked to build relationships with students to help them feel safe, to get them connected to resources. And that is how the program grew. It really, truly grew organically. And so here you can see, we had a great time at the Friendsgiving, and then these are also some of our campus partners included with us as well. And you can also see Dr. President Joy Smith is with us as well. And we can go to the next slide. So from fall of 2021, there was a total of 48 members within the program, 40 active members. Some of the ways that I communicate with students is through email, personal one-on-one meetings, and sometimes we even have like hybrid meetings, hybrid discussions. And so I've added some of the marketing to contact students that have been gone throughout the campus. I will also add that I serve as the advisor for the Black Student Union. So Black Student Union is the student organization, student campus organization. And so that's built into the program. And that's where we come in with the leadership opportunities, hosting events, and doing special activities, things of that nature. And next slide. Absolutely. So last fall, there was a total of 675 currently enrolled Black students at Oakton. So this is just an example. One of the initiatives used to reach students was a direct mailer. And again, with the program being new, that is me on there. But going forward, I would suggest and advise to get students, once you've built a relationship with students, include them in on the marketing, include them in on the promotion of the program as well. And so monthly emails go out, weekly emails go out, and program incentives go out as well. And in just a short time of last semester, these are some of the community partnerships that I've worked to create and build. And that's going to include the Family Action Network, Broadway Youth Center, YWCA in Evanston North Shore, DePaul University's Labor Education Center, and then Chicago State University's African American Male Resource Center as well. So it's very important to have community partners and folks to reach out to. Again, like I say, it's not just one person who can do it, but it takes a village literally to build and protect and support student populations. Next slide. Yeah, and so within the Black Student Success Program, some of the actual programming things that we've done, we've examined the folded map project, which takes apart redlining within the Chicago land specifically. We've done a horror noir series where we delve into Black horror. I work with a lot of visual artists, a lot of artists in the program. And so we've analyzed their art. We've helped with homework assignments all together. Partnering with some of my colleagues on campus, we were able to host a self-care within Black community. How does that look? Even partnering with the city of Des Plaines, we hosted a holiday celebration where we literally taught the city of Des Plaines about Kwanzaa and the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And most recently, we've had our MLK talk with staff writer of The Atlantic, Dr. Clint Smith, and that was January 26th. So I have another student voice here I want to share. Okay, and it says, I have been able to feel the closeness from my peers. Being around people who look like me helps me feel like I'm a part of something special. I received a copy of the 1619 Project, and it's helping me expand my knowledge and importance of Black people's position in and contributions to the US, and that comes from Laura. So partnering with the Family Action Network, I was able to get all the students who are in the Black Student Success Program a copy of the book. Next slide, please. And some results of having someone, a coordinator specifically in this place, to be able to care for and uplift Black students, the CARES grant. So that is the additional money from the Illinois government to help students get their degree and whatever things they need. So I've personally assist students with that. I've hosted FAFSA workshops where I've helped students get those. Students, there's a need for technology, and 2 student employees. We have a care coordinator. So again, helping to coordinate wraparound services. Again, I mentioned the Williams Academy, which will start in fall 2022. So there's been referrals from the Student Success Program, the Black Student Success Program, for that educational academic program, and then 3 student leader opportunities. And so this is an image from the holidays with myself and the Black Student Union president, Mr. Edward Bird, and Santa. So I'll just read a word from him. It says, I'm involved in leadership opportunities, including being BSU president and a member of the Student Success team. These opportunities have given me the resources and education to mentor young Black students who are considering coming to Oakton to participate in this program. So again, like having a program like this is inspirational for the students who are involved, and it builds confidence. And that is two of the things that I've seen and really, really appreciate about this position, being able to witness students grow and want to be more involved with their community. Next slide, please. So in addition to that, there are also needs that need to be addressed when we have a program like this that is specifically geared towards racialized, minoritized students. And that's going to be appropriate allyship. So again, I can't stress enough how important it is for all folks to be a part of this conversation, all folks to see how they can support students, and that can be in having critical conversations. Oakton specifically offers a Black allyship course where folks can take to learn about how to support your Black friends, faculty, and folks in your community. And so I also think it's very important to have a designated safe space. There's, no secret that there's been anti-Black racism. And so for me, again, when I talk about building community, building trust, I do have a designated safe space for Black students to share their concerns, to share their needs. And I think that is crucial and important if you're starting a program like this, to have that set in place first. Another thing is to increase campus-wide cultural and social consciousness. So Oakton is very unique in that our Black student population is not only comprised of African-American students. And coming here, I'm not from this neighborhood. I'm from a neighborhood further south where that neighborhood is comprised mostly of African-American folks. But again, coming into this position, coming into this new place and new neighborhood, it was really important for me to learn the community, learn the folks that I'm serving. Who am I serving? And that's going to comprise of Black folks from around the globe. So some students I work with are immigrant or first generation immigrant students who need ESL supports, students who identify with LGBTQ plus identities. And those students are experiencing inequities or more inequities as well. And so it's important for the campus to realize that and know that as well. And not to only speak to African-American, that's just one ethnicity, but it's okay to use the term Black. When we're speaking about Black students, it's more encompassed and it includes everyone. So that's just another tip I'd like to add. And we have another student voice here. So this is from Afua. She says, even though this is a new environment, it may be difficult for me to navigate, but that does not mean I'm less serious about my education. It is the way the school is set up that prohibits immigrant students from succeeding. So again, students, and if it shows that students are not performing as well, let's not take that as a knock on the students. Students want to perform well, they're showing up, they're here. And so it's upon the job of the institution to do everything that we can to support that students so they can get to the next level. And I think I have one more slide. Okay, so I'm done here, but I just want to add one more note and just want to speak to the Catalyst Grant. And so the Catalyst Grant has really been a huge support for the Black Student Success Program. We were able to get Professor Clint Smith to come and speak, and I actually partnered with 10 other Illinois community colleges throughout Illinois to be able to bring him to all of our campuses. And he spoke on his book, How the Word is Passed. So just really delving into what a Black American history is and how important it is. I've also set in place monthly mental health workshops specifically for Black men. And then we had a Black History Month lecture series that I was able to sponsor for 8 students. And then coming up after this spring semester, I'll use some of the grant money to help students do a virtual study abroad program. And so I think that's my time, but thank you all so much for listening, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. We want to, definitely create some time for folks to ask questions of anyone on the panel here. Thank you, Danielle, Dr. Ingram. I was going to comment, now you can tell why I love my job and working with folks like these. So thank you. And I would say this, I believe, will be submitted or shared by the conference organizers. And thank you so much, Emily, for being a great partner. But I would encourage you to visit our websites as well. The Partnership for College website, we just renovated or redesigned it, I should say, in the last few months. And we've done better to, more prominently feature the work of ILEA as an initiative, because there really is a lot of dynamic, as you just heard, dynamic reforms being implemented there.
And if I could just comment, I think one of the interesting strengths of ILEA is that it has 4-year and 2-year institutions working together, because a lot of the times there are things that we're doing that we can collaborate on. And so working together has been really valuable in that network.
I would voice a question. I'm curious, like Beth or Danielle, 1 or 2 things y'all could share that was maybe surprising that you learned from a fellow ILEA institution in this process, or as you've been, I mean, I know that it's an ongoing area of work and an ongoing process, but I'm curious if there was any sort of, if there were any sort of aha moments that were unexpected that you've learned from your peers in the process.
I guess you always know that we're really working on some of the same problems, but oftentimes 4-year institutions think we're so different and we admit different students than a 2-year institution that, and I don't know if this is an aha moment as much as a reminder that we do have a lot of commonalities and a lot of information that we can share. And so I think some of the interesting presentations for me were times in which an institution that was very different from NIU had tried something, and it gave us insight into how we might do something we were doing better. So, I can't think of a specific example, but I do remember hearing every conference I went to, there were 2 or 3 nuggets of things we could take back and say, hey, they did this way here. Could we tweak what we're doing to reflect what they've learned? So that's been very valuable.
I would just like to add that listening Dr. Beth Ingram to the efforts that Northern has made, it's always good for myself to be mindful. Some things that, we take for granted on this is how college is supposed to be. We just take it for granted, and we might not recognize that it poses a barrier. And so I think hearing that the developmental courses, you all eliminated those, I think that's great. And then just added more supports into the college level courses, making it more attainable for students. I hadn't thought that would even pose as a barrier, but hearing that and just helps me to be more mindful and continue to think about ways the institutions are having barriers and how to work with others to break those down.
If I can add to that, because something that Dr. Ingram mentioned, I think earlier, that it's not going to take one, there's no silver bullet essentially, right? No one singular initiative that's going to, address the whole problem and make sure there's equity for all students that we're aiming to serve. I think another thing that I've learned in this course of this work and working with partners like NIU and Oakton and even national thought partners in this is that good intentions also are not enough, and that we have to be honest with how we're setting ourselves up to succeed or not succeed. And we have to be race conscious, essentially. So we hosted an institute just last week for our network, and we had over 550 attendees for that. But I was struck by our opening keynote, who's a president at Long Beach City College, and he's been engaged in this equity-minded work for a number of years, and as a practitioner now as a president. But he said, look, you have to be real about naming race because, and I've learned that, and I think I've sort of, you have to read the room, and sometimes, it's like folks really can be turned off by that. But the reality is that if we're not engaging this work in a race conscious way, then we're only going to perpetuate the same gaps that exist amongst our students. So we have to be there. We have to address it very honestly.
Just wanted to uplift from the chat this comment from Allegra about just wanting to expose current students in a feeder district for Oakton to the great work that's happening. And that's really exciting. I think one of the most powerful parts of our network here is how we think about connecting secondary and post-secondary and recognizing that we all kind of have to be a part of this team, right? I'm going to drop in the chat just before we leave, which I know we have several minutes before then and want to want to encourage folks to ask all their questions or offer their comments, but there's, for example, a session tomorrow about transitional instruction and how that helps us reduce the need for dev ed. And that requires really deep partnership across secondary and post-secondary. So definitely excited to see that this information is helpful even for folks in different parts of our pipeline here.
Thank you, folks. I would encourage you to follow up with my colleagues here, definitely. And then PCC will have a presentation tomorrow, I believe, and Thursday to learn more about our public policy efforts. So definitely encourage you all to show up for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't want to keep you guys if you're ready to go, but thank you so much, Joe, for pulling this session together and for the great work you do at PCC. Joe. Beth, thank you for the wonderful work you're leading at NIU. Danielle, likewise at Oakton. Just so exciting to hear sort of on the ground what this looks like, and just really want to celebrate all of the intentional efforts that you're making and the impact that you're having on students in your communities.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, take care.